Well, the Rockies are starting to see a lot of young talent make their way up to Coors Field. Is that young talent good enough to build a winning roster in the future, or do the Rockies need to add a bunch of more pieces moving forward? We're going to talk about the future of the Colorado Rockies coming up next on the DNVR Rockies podcast. What's up, everyone? It is the DNVR Rockies podcast, live here on this Friday afternoon, officially 12:01 p.m. here on a Friday. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code DNVR365. You sign up, place a bet for $5. You can get $150 back in bonus bets. How's it going, everyone? Rockies baseball was abysmal last night. I got to say, I was a little... We actually both didn't watch the game. I caught the highlights of it. We were...
You were too busy hitting dingers.
We were hitting dingers at the softball game. So we were a little busy last night, but I did see the highlights. It didn't look like pitching did too good again.
You asked. I was checking my phone mid softball game because I'm a sicko and always want to see how the Rocks are doing. And you go, "How's the Rockies game?" And I said, "It's 5-0." And you're like, "What inning?" I was like, "It's the second." You're like, "Cool." Just went up to bat.
Yeah, just grabbed a bat, and I'm like, we're going back to things. It's not good. It's not what it's no surprise. None of us are sitting here expecting the Rockies to be anything better than that. But today I want to talk about the future of this team, because what I will say is we're starting to see a Rockies lineup that is featuring a lot of the young guys that we were hoping we were going to get to see. And now maybe you could have made the argument that we wanted to see these types of lineups earlier in the year, but you know, the past is the past. We're in the here and now. We're living in the moment. And the Rockies have had some pretty good lineups that we've seen offensively, at least, getting run out there. You see Kyle Karros getting starts at third. Warming Bernabel, is making his name in a Rockies uniform. Adael Amador has had some good minutes. We're starting to see things kind of come around. So it kind of brought up the question to me of, okay, this is a window into the future, or a possible future, of what this Rockies lineup could look like in the next couple years. And if we're sitting here saying, okay, by let's just say 2027, the Rockies are going to be a playoff team, how much of that theoretical, that hypothetical playoff team in 2027 is going to be built up of these guys we're seeing today? How much of this young talent that we're seeing from the Colorado Rockies do you think that can end up turning into a playoff team down the road?
Well, I always have my purple glasses on, and I truly believe that this lineup that they're putting out almost every day right now, with Mickey Moniak, your kind of wild card signing, former first overall pick, being the oldest guy in the lineup at 27 years old, is something we should see the rest of this year and hopefully all of next year, and see what they can actually put together for a full season of, you're going to have injuries. You're going to have, and injuries this year were actually helpful. Like, don't get me wrong, Thairo Estrada had probably a handful of good games where you're like, oh, this is the guy we signed in the offseason. This was our big ticket on a Rockies level signing. And then he's gotten hurt so much that you've had to play guys like Ryan Ritter have had to come up. Guys like Kyle Karros have had to come up, and you've traded away, your kind of cornerstone third baseman for a long time in Mr. Rocky and Ryan McMahon. And it's all for a purpose. This isn't just trying to get through the rest of the season. I truly believe that these guys are all on a roughly 60-game, 50-game tryout for the rest of this year to see where you can set your base up for next spring training. And then if you do add a few pieces, likely, I'd like to see this lineup starting in 2026, April or March 28th or whatever day that is. Like, some iteration of 7 or 8 of these guys need to be in the lineup in opening day next year. And you just hope that they build off what they're doing this season, build off of that in spring training, and then open the 2026 year with the current hitting lineup. We haven't talked about the pitching because everybody knows what it is. But if we're boiling this down to strictly the lineup, the 9 hitters, the DH, who's catching, who's playing in the infield, and who's playing in the outfield, and don't worry about the pitcher's mound, I firmly believe the Rockies team is on the right track.
Okay. All right. That's a positive look at that. I am going to take the more pessimistic approach to this conversation because I'm kind of with Burge on this one. You know, we just saw the minor league farm rankings for the Colorado Rockies, and the Rockies farm system, despite being a organization that claims to be a draft and development organization, the Rockies are 24th, at least their minor league system is 24th out of 30, which is not good, in case you were wondering. And so, you know, that aside, there doesn't seem to be a lot of help coming up. Now, yes, we have Charlie Condon, we have Ethan Holiday. There's a couple big names there, and there could be some surprises, right? Hunter Goodman was a positive surprise where he kind of tore it up in the minors. You didn't really expect him to turn out to be this huge big leaguer, and here he is, you know, one of the faces of the franchise in 2025. So there could be a surprise or two hidden within the minor league system. But for the most part, this isn't like the Brewers. This isn't like the Dodgers or even, you know, even a team like the A's that has just such good draft and development formulas. This is the Rockies, and the Rockies don't have a lot of help coming on the horizon. So you look at the guys that are on the team now, and again, some of those young guys, Warming Bernabel, Kyle Karros, Adael Amador, Ryan Ritter, right? There's Jordan Beck even. You could put him in that conversation, you know, out in the outfield. Zach Veen can kind of get tossed in there as well. There are young players that are either playing at Coors Field right now or knocking on the door of playing at Coors Field right now. And so if you give those guys, if you kind of organize, you know, a lineup based on those guys alone, do I think that can be a lineup that gets you to the playoffs one day? I gotta say, just being realistic, I don't think so. At least not as it stands today. And a lot of things, there have to be a lot of things that would go right. So, you know, you'd have to assume that, let's just say Warming Bernabel continues to grow as a player and ends up being a guy who's like hitting like 320 next year. Kyle Karros turns into the next Nolan Arenado, which you've seen some early comps of him being a Nolan Arenado styled player. Like a lot of those kind of development things have to go right just for this team to be set up in a way currently where their offense is good enough to be even considered to be a playoff team. So I'm not saying that it's impossible for the talent that they have right now to be a playoff team down the road, but I do feel like, yes, the players that we see right now, they're serviceable big leaguers. They're starting to come into their own. You know, it's nice to see some stability as Rockies fans, but I just don't know if it's enough to be a playoff team.
And that's a completely fair assessment. Where I would go on the other side of the coin with what Burge said and ranking our prospects is the way I kind of look at it in this exact moment. We're sitting here on August 15th, 12:08 p.m. as Rockies fans. Realistically, the guys that are going to suit up tonight when we're there for Friday Rooftop Club at Coors Field, 7 of them in the starting lineup, 6 or 7 of them are, in my eyes, still prospects.
Sure.
And when you look at it that way, you look at the Ryan Ritters, the Kyle Karros, the Warming Bernabels, Hunter Goodman borderline is on that, you know, the Jordan Becks, like all of those guys, if they're in AAA right now, we have the best AAA team, you know, Albuquerque's winning every game.
Sure.
And so I'm not saying that they are AAA players. They're definitely major leaguers, but they're in this very weird transition right now with the guys that are good enough probably to be in the major leagues are. Like there's no guys, this whole season has been, you know, other than Zach Veen going back down, like every guy at AAA, Warming Bernabel knocking on the door, Kyle Karros knocking on the door, and they're getting called up, and now they're sticking with the major league club. So in my eyes, that's a little bit of a positive note of these guys have stuck up here. Adael Amador is still kind of a question mark. He seems to be decent when he plays. Yanquiel Fernandez is still just, it's a logjam in the outfield, so he doesn't play enough to say, I can confidently say that he's a future big leaguer in right field or not. But literally, you put this Rockies lineup down in AAA, or they're in the prospect system, and that ranking probably goes way higher. But all of those guys right now, literally, I think if you look at the Rockies' top prospects, I don't think a single one of them is in AAA anymore, unless you consider Veen, you know, who's been in the major leagues. But a lot of those guys are of the single A, you know, the Ethan Holidays, and then double A, all the pitchers we got from the Yankees. Like all of those guys are in the single or double A realm where you can't really envision what they're going to be as big leaguers yet because they're still 2 years away. But all the guys that we could envision maybe coming up next year and being the next star have just been pushed to come up now and are up with the Rockies now in the Karoses and the Bernie Bells. So I feel confident in that the product on the field at a major league level is not that great, but the product on the field at a AAA level would be extremely high with this whole group of players. So they're in this in between of like, are they a AAA player that's ready yet? Well, the unfortunate part is we've had so many injuries that they have to be ready. Yeah. They're going to play in the major leagues. We have to play these guys. And this is what we wanted all along, was these guys to play. So I think we can't really have it both ways in the fact that we want our prospects to be good. Like, ideally, yes, the prospects would still be good and still be ranked high like a Brewers or like some of these other teams that just have stacked farm systems. But then at some point, those prospects don't become prospects anymore. And that's where the Rockies are transitioning to for the rest of 25 and will be at 26. Like, those guys are no longer prospects. Those are major league players, and they're hopefully ready for that jump.
Yeah, it is. It does go to show how big of a jump, though, it is between AAA and the big leagues. To be a good AAA baseball player, Chase Dolander, for example, incredible AAA baseball player. He was, his numbers, before getting called up to the Rockies were electric in AAA and beyond. And then you get called up to the big leagues, and he's had good moments. But, it's a rude awakening when you get up to the big leagues and you're playing teams like the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Padres, the Cubs. These are good teams. And I was talking to you about this before the show, and I was, we're watching this Diamondback series, and we've seen the Rockies play the Diamondbacks before. And you watch the Diamondbacks, and you're like, man, this is a good team. But you look at the standings, I don't think the Diamondbacks are actually going to make the playoffs this year. I mean, the Diamondbacks are 4.5 games back from a wild card spot. Sure, they could make the playoffs. But this is a good Diamondbacks team that, to your point that you were saying before the show, has had tons of injuries this year, have sold their best players pretty much. Their starting pitching has been ripped to shreds with injuries. And they're still such a good team that they're going and going on winning streaks here in the latter half of the season, and they're making a run towards the playoffs, and yet they probably still won't make the playoffs. Or if nothing else, they'll make a wild card series, and that's going to be it. Like, that to me is the reality that Rockies as an organization, Rockies fans have to face, is that, yeah, sure, Ryan Ritter's a good player. Kyle Karros so far seems like a good player. Warming Bernabel has been a positive surprise. But if you look at the reality of what it takes to be a legitimately good team at the big league level, the Rockies are so far away from that. And so I'm not trying to be like a huge Debbie Downer.
Just wet blanketing.
I totally
Friday.
am.
It's
totally
Friday.
am.
It's not Monday. It's Friday.
I know. And I'm like, we're getting hyped to go to watch the game tonight for Friday Rooftop Club. Like, don't get me wrong. I have hope that this team can figure it out at some point. I at least will be optimistic in that world, but I don't think they're doing the right thing yet. I think they still need to make changes that they haven't made yet. I think it starts with Bill Schmidt, Chris Forbes, people like that, losing their jobs, getting replaced by new thought processes, new systems that can get put into place. I think there needs to be a lot of cleaning house, so to speak, both at the high level and at the player level, to get to a point where you can kind of almost, again, start from scratch, which we're seeing here so far starting this year during the trade deadline and during the draft. So, like I said, I'm not saying that the Rockies can't use pieces of what they have now to build a winning lineup down the road. But like I was saying before, you have to have so many things go right. You have to have young players progressing into legitimate big leaguers. You have to have a pitching staff that all of a sudden becomes extremely stable. And you have to sign a couple free agents for a good amount of money to balance out that lineup so that you have the star power mixed with, the young players that are building up to what they need to be.
Yeah, and it's like we've kind of talked about, and I've said this too many times on the podcast, but I'm going to say it again because it's what I truly believe is the ideal Rockies team this year is they have a lot of good role players. Like, if you took any of these prospects, like a Kyle Karros, and you put them in a different organization where maybe they are, just raking at AAA, but there's no room for them to get called up. Those teams are like, yeah, look at what we've got at the big league level, and then look what we've got still just waiting at the prospect level. The Rockies have a lot of really good players that would fit roles, but they don't have the star power at the major league level to make those players feel like they're a gem of the future, because really the future is now for this team. The rest of this year is a growing and learning experience, whether they win ball games or not, for a lot of these players being in the major leagues. And like I said, if you just dabble these prospects into other teams, the other teams are like, oh my God, we have X guy that's just ready to come up, but we're too good at the major league level to let him come up right now. Let's just let him rake there. Maybe he comes up in September, gets a few at bats, earns his way onto the field. But the Rockies are like, we don't have anyone at the major league level that is worth saying stay down at AAA. Every piece of talent that they think they have to call up right now, and they are doing that.
Your shortstop. I mean, Tovar's probably the only guy. Tovar, Goodman, like those kind of guys are the only ones that you're like, yeah, you've got a legitimate spot. Same thing with Doyle at center field, but Doyle is getting worked around too, you know?
Right, and you have to get at bats for like guys like Moniak and Freeman and other guys like that. So the where the Rockies are progressing, whether or not the players are actually good, is still up in the air, right? That's always up in the air until they played 100 major league games or 200 or 2 seasons in the major league level, whatever. But the process right now with the guys that they have, I think is on the right track, which I don't know if I've been able to say in a long time for the Rockies.
Yeah, it's a start. It's a start. Like I said, I'm not like I'm all out on everyone that the Rockies have and I'm saying, hey, I just, sell them all and bring in a completely new lineup. Like there are pieces that I like and I want to see, because I do think you can see the progression of a guy like Kyle Karros, because we've seen so many comps between him and Nolan Arenado. There's all these stats about how Nolan Arenado wasn't a power hitter when he started out. He was just a tall, lanky third baseman, kind of awkward, took some time to grow into his body, and then the power came. And, I totally think we could see that from Kyle Karros. So I want to give guys time to progress and develop as well. I just think a lot more needs to happen with that, but it is interesting. We are starting to see some of those conversations take place. We got to take our first break. After the break, though, we got to talk about another logjam that's kind of popped up. Second base now has some competition between Adael Amador, Ryan Ritter, and also number 4 ranked prospect Rock Riggio, along with Tyro Estrada, who's still in the organization. So we'll talk about that logjam. And also, I've seen a couple comments earlier about Kris Bryant. What do the Rockies do with Kris Bryant in the offseason? We'll come up with that and talk about that a little bit after the break. I want to give some love to our friends right now over at Coors Light. And I got to say, I am pretty stoked because today is a special day. We get to go hang out at the rooftop at Coors Field for another Friday Rooftop Club. And one of the best parts of getting to hang out with good friends up at the rooftop, watch some hopefully good baseball, is you get to do it with a nice, cold, refreshing Coors Light. It is the best. It's the cherry on top of any baseball game that you watch, but especially when you're hanging out. I mean, the rooftop is known for their Coors Lights. Could you make the argument that Coors Light tastes better on the rooftop? I know that there's no science behind it, but subjectively.
There's some serious subjective science behind that. And the second one tastes better than the first one. The third one tastes better than the second one. As they just get better as they progressively go.
And I got to say, when the Rockies come back from down 9-0 in the first inning during a rooftop club and you're drinking a Coors Light, it's the best tasting Coors Light you'll ever have.
I might have had too many that night.
Hey, no such thing when the Rockies are making a comeback as historic as that. But embrace that chill mindset. Come hang with us at the Friday Rooftop Club and come join us while we drink some nice, cold, refreshing Coors Lights. You can get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instant Cart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company in Golden, Colorado. Also got to give some love to our friends over at Volo Sports. Actually, we were talking about we had a softball game last night, but we were watching some of the Volo crew doing some, I think it was volleyball. They had a volleyball setup going on. I was just realizing I was driving by Broadway the other day and saw all of the new Volo beach volleyball courts that are all set up.
South Broadway. Yep.
That was incredible, man. That's awesome. If you guys aren't familiar with Volo, first of all, welcome to Denver, because anyone who's lived in Denver long enough definitely knows who Volo is. Volo is an adult social sports leagues. You can just join tons of different games, sports, things like beer in hand, kickball, volleyball, pickleball, basketball, cornhole, any of those. I've done plenty of Volo leagues in the past, and it's such a good time. So much fun, a great way to meet people. And I know it's hard to meet people nowadays, with social media and all that kind of stuff. So Volo's a great way to get outside in the summer, meet some people. So you can sign up as a free agent, small group, or full team. All ability levels and backgrounds welcome to join. Use code DNVR10 for $10 off any Volo Denver league. All right. So we're talking a little bit about logjam. We've talked about the Rockies having a logjam in the outfield, and that seems to have eased up a little bit. Zach Veen kind of fell off the map a little bit. Yanquiel Fernandez, his bat hasn't been good enough, and maybe we haven't seen enough of him to really make that decision, make that determination yet. But his bat hasn't been good enough to fully keep him in the lineup, like Warming Bernabel has. So I'd say the logjam has kind of eased up a little bit in the outfield for the time being. But we're starting to see another one pop up at second base. Ryan Ritter, Adael Amador, now number 4 ranked prospect Rock Riggio, who the Rockies just acquired from the Yankees, right? He came over in the Yankees deal.
Yep.
And you still have Estrada. Now, I do think Estrada is gone this offseason. I think, first of all, he's going to cost too much money, and you just have too many young players who are ready to go. Ryan Ritter has established himself as a big leaguer. Do you see there being a world in which Ritter is challenged at second base, or do you think second base is pretty much Ritter's spot moving forward?
I think Ritter is your next second baseman for the Rockies for a long time, and having that elite of a fielder, where we saw him be an above average fielder. Yeah.
He's good.
He makes some errors, but he was an above average infielder playing shortstop when Tovar was out.
Yeah.
So if you have that athleticism and can move a guy like that to second base, I think it significantly helps your infield defense, where, let's be real here, if Warming Bernabel continues on the trajectory he's started on, even if it flattens out a little bit, which we kind of expect it to, you don't have an above average actual first baseman. He's not a first baseman. He's playing first base and doing an admirable job for not being a first baseman. But you really need to bolster the rest of the infield defensively to be a competent defense, to be a competent MLB team somewhere down the line. And I think Ritter adds a huge help to that, having a shortstop basically playing second base. And I don't know. I've heard the Amador stories. I've seen the Amador AAA home runs. To me, his bat is very much like, it doesn't excite me. It just doesn't get me. Like, he's the guy that's going to hit 10 singles and maybe one double and one home run every month, or if that. And it's just,
at best, he's a Tyler Freeman at best, and I don't think he ever will get to that spot.
His ceiling is Tyler Freeman, and Tyler Freeman's, he steals bases and gets on base at an insane clip. But that would be great to see Amador at that level. But like you said, that's a ceiling, and we gotta stop. As the Rockies grow, we love to have the high ceilings, but I want to see some more higher floors than higher ceilings.
I agree.
And there's
100%.
so many low floors on the Rockies right now that's what makes your record 32 and 89 or whatever it is.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I think we tend to overvalue our players, our prospects. Adael Amador's fine. He's a mid-level, AAA to big league kind of utility guy. But I just, again, if you're being critical here and you're saying, is Adael Amador a part of a 2027 playoff team? He's not, in my eyes. He really just isn't. I wish him the best. I hope he plays well in the future. Maybe somewhere else, but I just don't see that being the case.
Yeah, because the versatility of Ritter is what gives you the opportunity to either play him at second base every day, or Ritter is a perfect guy. Like if you're building another team's lineup and you have a team that's in the wild card and you've got a guy coming off your bench that can play shortstop at a average level, second base at probably an elite or above average level, and even play third base, and he's fast, and he makes plays on the base paths, that's a perfect backup infielder.
Yeah.
And the Rockies may have to start him at second base, and hopefully that is the case. But that's where, like, Amador to me is just a Jamie Carroll that can only play second base. Is kind of what you're getting from him.
Yeah, and I like what Lefty in the chat says. Ryan Ritter is the Rockies' version of a Swiss Army knife, sharp, versatile, and occasionally cuts himself. Yeah, it's true. But
it's funny that we just yelled for guys to bunt, and then he gets hurt on a bunt when he's like slowly ascending to a good major league career. And we're like, oh, maybe we should not bunt.
Yeah, maybe we don't bunt. I remember last year, side note for a second, last year Michael Toglia put down like a bunt, like on his own, tried to bunt for a base hit. And I remember it was like the coolest thing ever to me. I'm like, this, look at Michael Toglia being all, versatile. And yeah, I was all excited about that. Ryan Ritter to me feels like he could also be a utility guy. He could be one of those guys that ends up, floating around, because let's just say Rock Riggio, who on paper right now looks legit. He looks like the real deal. If he can continue to progress the way he's going, he needs to get a shot at the big league level. If Rock Riggio becomes the next Kyle Karros and solidifies himself at second base, and you have an infield of Kyle Karros, Tovar, Riggio, and then maybe warming Burnabout first base. You could possibly kind of keep Ritter up at that level as a good utility player. And I'd be totally okay with that because he's that Swiss Army knife. I mean, Ritter can play anywhere in the infield. He's got a serviceable to slightly above average bat at times. And I'm cool with that.
If you we got something going down here. If you sicko Rockies fans remember, this might predate you, but Ryan Ritter is a faster Omar Quintanilla, who used to be just this super utility guy for the Rockies.
I remember the name.
He'd play every Sunday because, Sundays are kind of the days where you get these weird lineups. Every Sunday, he'd be in the lineup at third base or shortstop or second base. Left-handed hitter, hit, probably 230, 240. And I think Ritter's right in that realm, but Ritter's fast and Ritter makes plays on the base path.
Yeah, and he's stable, like you said. He sometimes struggles with strikeouts, but which Rocky doesn't struggle with strikeouts? But he's pretty stable. He's pretty consistent. Doesn't feel like a guy that has highs and lows. Like he just feels like a guy who's going to be kind of constant for you. So yeah, that second base spot's going to be interesting to watch as it continues on. But I want to transition to who could be possibly coming up next. Who could be the next guy that we see? Because September's right around the corner, which is crazy to say. And we could possibly be seeing a couple more call-ups. Are we going to see Zach Veen again? I see Jackson in the chat says, should we be worried about what Tolia is doing with the isotopes? And we might recall him too early.
Let him hit 700 for the isotopes. We can't see that again. We can't do it again.
It's so sad. I am so bummed. And I know we've talked about this before, so I don't want to get too deep into it, but I'm so bummed at the just regression of Rockies fans and our feelings around Michael Tolia. I mean, he went from at the beginning of this year being a guy that we were like, future Gold Glover, your next version of Todd Helton, not a Hall of Famer, but your next long-term first baseman, to a guy that Rockies fans, myself included, are like, we can't see him at the big league level at least till next year. Like we need to give him some time. So no, I think the Rockies feel the same way about Michael Tolia. Yes, Michael Tolia has had 4 consecutive multi-hit games in AAA. Good for him. I wish him the best. He should not be playing. Yeah, he should not be playing at Coors Field anytime soon. You have a perfectly stacked infield with young guys that I would rather see at this point than Michael Tolia. Give Michael Tolia another shot at spring training. Let him see if he's made some adjustments. But for now, I don't think we see Michael Tolia getting called up. What about Zach Veen? Do we see Zach Veen coming up at any point this season?
I think Veen is the next guy.
I think so too.
And when you go to CT Gaming's comment there, I think the most exciting prospects for us are more than a year away. It plays out perfectly. I was looking at the Rockies top prospect ranking, and you have to get all the way down to number 10. 10, 11, and 12 are Yanquiel Fernandez, Kyle Karros, and Ryan Ritter, who have had substantial major league time.
Colorado Rockies.
Literally 1 through 9, you've got single A in Holiday, you've got double A, single A, rookie ball, A+, double A, and A+, 1 through 9. So you're exactly right. These guys are a ways away, and there's Calez, there's Carrig, Condon, Brecht, JB Middleton, their second round pick, is the number 6 overall prospect. Max Bellew, one of their draft picks this year, is the number 7 prospect. Griffin Herring, who you got in the trade, is number 9 overall.
Who's dealing, by the way, in Spokane.
Yeah, so you've got a lot of talent that is still multiple years away. And what you hope happens is they hang on enough with the guys that are up at the major league level. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be, a few free agent signings in the offseason that may start, or maybe major league players. But you build up to a 2027 where 7 or 8 of these guys are knocking on the door to make the major league roster, versus being in the position we are now where they're like, oh, they're all on the major league roster because we don't have any serviceable big leaguers. You hope the guys today are serviceable big leaguers starting 2026 and 2027. They're really pushing. And then a lot of these guys are pieces of the puzzle. But at least you have, you get, when you make a puzzle, you get the corner pieces first and try to build the outside. The Rockies don't have any of that yet. They've got a bunch of pieces on the table that they're trying to figure out if any of them belong in the actual right part of the puzzle. And then you have a pretty stacked, looking at it from a Rockies perspective, pretty stacked top 10 prospects that are all at least 2 to 3 years away.
Yeah. Sterling Thompson, by the way, I see Jackson has mentioned him a couple times. Shout out to Sterling. I do think he might be a guy that we start seeing here soon. You know, his numbers offensively have been great. 292 in AAA this season. He's got 13 bombs, 50 RBIs, almost a 900 OPS. So him and Veen, I think, could be guys that we see. But again, the Rockies' issues right now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which way you want to look at it, aren't really defensive, and they're not really offensive either. The issues are pitching. And so, yes, we could see Zach Veen get called up, and, we could see him platooning out in the outfield, kind of like Fernandez, if Fernandez ends up getting sent down or whatever that situation looks like. Thompson could kind of be in the same boat, depending on what the infield looks like. But at the moment, you don't really have a lot of moving pieces in the infield aside from injuries and the outfield. The big question marks is pitching. So it's unfortunate that we kind of have log jams in both the infield and the outfield, when I wish we were sitting here saying we have a log jam in your pitching rotation, because, as CT Gaming says, I would love to see Gabe Hughes in September. I'd love to see Sean Sullivan if he's recovering as well as, we hope he is. But outside of those couple guys, and maybe a couple more names that, I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, there's not a lot of depth pitching wise, at least that's ready to get called up right now. A lot of the guys that we'd be seeing called up are guys that we've already seen, Carson Palmquist.
Guys that we signed, Nick Martinez, what's his name?
Nick Anderson. Nick Anderson. I forget that he's even on our team sometimes. I'm like, who?
Scoreless inning yesterday.
Yeah, good for him. I wish that we could say we had the same problem with pitching, but unfortunately that's not the case. But you're right. A couple years from now, maybe we'll be having a different conversation. Spence and I will still be sitting here in these seats. Maybe some gray hairs on both of our heads.
Oh, I got plenty of those already.
And we'll be.
Wait till you have a kid. That accelerates it quickly.
A kid and a couple more years watching Rockies baseball, we'll be fully gray by then. But hey, I want to take a second break here on the show. After the break, the Rockies have a big gaping black hole right now, and his name is Kris Bryant. What do the Rockies do with Kris Bryant in the offseason? What are their options with Kris Bryant in the offseason? We'll have that conversation coming up next. Well, I want to give some love to our friends right now over at Empire Today, because if you are finishing up your home projects for the summer, because summer is almost at a close. September is right around the corner, and then next thing you know, it's football season, fall. It's going quick. So you got to finish up those home projects, and if you're going to be replacing your floors, Empire Today is the place to go. They are incredible when it comes to getting you the best value for your floors and also getting you the floor of your dreams. They've done some incredible work. I have some friends who have had floors installed by Empire Today, and my wife and I have worked with Empire in the past. I mean, you cannot go wrong, and I cannot express enough how nice it is to have a big project like replacing your floors taken care of by professionals, by experts, by a company that knows what they're doing. We can say that firsthand because they replaced all of our floors here in studios. It's something that you really want to make sure, the right company is there to take care of. So schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. DNVR listeners can receive a $350 discount with promo code DNVR. That is a $350 discount with code DNVR. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday.com/DNVR for details. Also want to give some love to our friends over at Cake Mortgage, because if you are trying to get approved for a home loan, you're trying to go out there and buy a house, maybe you're investing in real estate. I know Spencer's gotten into real estate investing recently. Like it's a hot thing to get into. Well, it can be a challenge sometimes. The banks can get really, really finicky, especially if you do not have a traditional income, your 9-to-5 salary, so to speak. If you've got all these different types of incomes, whether you're a freelancer, a contractor, you have different types of investment properties, a lot of times banks look at that and they say, yeah, we don't really trust that. We need to see more from that. And so you might be making a certain amount of money that you can qualify for a home, and the banks say, we're only going to qualify you for a portion of that. Well, with Cake Mortgage, they can get you qualified for the home using all of your income, whether you're a contractor, a freelancer, or just have non-traditional income. They can make sure that they get you approved for all of your income, so that you can get the house of your dreams or get that investment property of your dreams. So if you've always dreamed about owning income property, or if you're building your real estate legacy, call 1-800-EAT-CAKE or head to the link in the description, because life is better with Cake. Again, that's Cake Mortgage Corporation, equal housing lender, NMLS number 1734623, licensed in Colorado by the Division of Real Estate. Terms and conditions apply. And when you go to Cake, be sure to let them know that we sent you. And shout out to our friends over at Cake Mortgage. All right, get the popcorn ready, folks. We're talking our good friend, Kris Bryant. Yes, he is still a Colorado Rocky, and he is still currently listed as a member of the Colorado Rockies. What are the Rockies' options for our good old KB? They're paying him a lot of money. That money is not going anywhere. But I have talked to some people within the media and talked about what the Rockies' options are. And I've talked to people who have been around the Rockies for a while and have good relationships with people in the organization. There is a good understanding that Kris Bryant will be let go. He will be released from his contract. Now, his contract is guaranteed, so the Rockies will still have to pay him. But I think you're at a point in this in your existence as an organization where you've got to clear up that roster spot. And yes, there is a black hole financially, and yes, it hurts ego-wise as an organization. I mean, this whole season has hurt ego-wise as an organization for the Rockies, but it hurts to let go of a player that you're paying so much money for. You're paying the most money for organizationally, but you can't have him taking up a roster spot. I think there's enough competition. We'd come into this season saying, hey, maybe he can just be that extra guy on the roster that just sits on the bench and no one even thinks about him, and we all move on and nothing happens, and he just takes up a roster spot until he retires. I think, given the state of the Rockies franchise now and how much competition there has to be, I need to be seeing that competition for that final roster spot. You can't have him taking up a roster seat.
No, he's got to be gone, and it's unfortunate. Bad contract. I still remember exactly where I was driving when I got the ESPN notification that the Rockies signed him. Got really excited, to be honest, because that was in the middle of I think that was right after the first 100-loss season, or maybe right before. He's been such an anomaly of just not playing that I don't even know when he got here and when he, where he is.
Yeah,
or
what
he's
year
doing.
did they sign him? Was it 2020?
I want to say he's been a Rocky for 3 years. So this is
you're right. It
third
feels
year.
like it feels because he hasn't played pretty much at all. He's barely even played a full season combined.
They signed him in 2022. And that was
yes, by the way,
year.
Jackson, yeah, I know he doesn't take up a roster spot now, but assuming, because he's on the IL at the moment, assuming you rehab, you can only stay on the IL for so long. I mean, I guess I don't know if there's laws against just keeping someone on the IL forever, but I think the Players Association would have something to say about that. So eventually the Rockies would have to take him off of the IL and reinstate him on the roster, and that's more of the roster spot I'm talking about. So yeah, he's done for the season, although it hasn't been officially announced. He is not going to take up a roster spot on the team this year, but in 2026, are you just going to keep moving him back year after year with just IL stints? I don't know. Maybe they will. I just think there's got to be some way, and I'm sure the Rockies lawyers are looking at it, that the Rockies find a way to just release him, pay him all his money, right? Who cares? It's already a loss. Pay him all his money, get him off the team, let him go and enjoy the rest of his life in peace. I feel bad about the injuries, but he can't be on this team anymore.
No, he's got to be, you got to just, because I think the biggest issue, and maybe this will change going into next year if he somehow is still on the roster, is Bud Black was very into Kris Bryant, right? And Bud Black is no longer the manager of his team. It's Warren Schaefer's team now. And I think that's where all of us really, it made the Kris Bryant situation worse, because going into every offseason, there's clips on the radio show I listen to of Bud Black saying we got to have a full healthy season of KB, and that's like a thing. We're
hoping KB's the veteran slugger.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a bit, and so hopefully going into this offseason, whether he's on the roster or not, he shouldn't be. But a lot of the things that we say the Rockies should do, they don't. So theoretically, if he is on the roster going into the offseason and into spring training next year, it won't be as bad if I don't hear his name in spring training, like, oh, who's your veteran on this team? That's not
it's not going to be Kris Bryant.
And it can't be the answer. I've got a fun guessing game for you.
Okay.
Since the Rockies signed Kris Bryant, the Rockies have played in 576 games. How many games has Kris Bryant played in out of 576?
187.
170. So he's basically just generated, he played 11 games this year. So right before this year, he wasn't even to a full season of baseball with the Rockies in 3 full years of potential games. It's unbelievable.
That is unbelievable. Scott, a good point in the chat with Schmidt gone, assuming that Bill Schmidt gets fired or reassigned, whatever that looks like this offseason. You're right. Kris Bryant would be the last tie. I think in the theme of selling out and just starting from scratch, starting from rock bottom, you would think that, you move on from your GM, you move on from your head of scouting, you move on from your big albatross contract that's gotten you nowhere. You would think that those things you move on from. So I think the Rockies are actively, I've heard on good authority that the Rockies are actively trying to find a way to move on from Kris Bryant this offseason. I hope they can do it. I think the only way Kris Bryant comes back next year is if they legally can't find a loophole to let him go without there being some sort of contractual penalty that gets enforced after the fact. So I'm hopeful that they're able to do that. It's interesting. I was thinking back to a conversation I'd had again with one of the other media members in the press box who has been around the Rockies for a long time. They were talking about, the owner. They were talking about Dick Monfort and the Monforts in general, and saying, it's interesting to watch how ownership deals with the players from a contract standpoint, especially when it comes to like minor leaguers or guys that they're trying to release, contractual disputes, all that kind of stuff. The Rockies play, or organizationally, the Rockies play hardball when it comes to a player. If a player's trying to get in or out of a contract, the Rockies are, the big bad CEO that's trying to like swindle every single dime out of a player who's not
the smallest, even the smallest players.
Yeah, and trying to get whatever penny they can get out of that player because that player's not performing or not doing whatever they need to be doing. And, so there's this idea that Rockies ownership plays hardball with the players. Why is that energy not kept when it comes to the front office? Right? Why doesn't Dick Monfort look at the dysfunction in his front office that he's hired in Bill Schmidt, Chris Forbes, all the scouting, development, analytics, all of that kind of stuff? Why don't they play hardball in the same way? I mean, if you're a player who isn't performing for whatever reason, you are sent home to AAA, AA. You're sent to the moon. Michael Toglia struck out pretty much for 2 months straight, and the Rockies said, "We never want to see you again." Right? I mean, they're going to play politics and say, "Oh yeah, we hope he recovers and gets back to where he used to be." I think I think Big Mike is gone from this Rockies organization. Why don't they do that with the front office? And it's not an answer you can answer. No, it's a hypothetical almost.
It doesn't make any sense, and that's where a lot of we're obviously sitting here as media or potential media, as some of the Twitter was going around in Denver yesterday with some people. I won't get into that, but we're sitting here and we think the Rockies should do a certain amount of things, and it's usually them doing the opposite or them continuing to do things the way they have been, which when you win, there's teams that do things way different ways around the entire Major League Baseball and all the 4 major sports in America. There's teams that run things a different way, but if you win, nobody can tell you anything. And the second you lose 3 straight seasons of 100+ losses and continue down this path of not only being a bad baseball team, but being organizationally made fun of around professional media, around national media, around the league, and just being you're so bad that it's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's when it's it should incite some change. And we still, we've slowly seen little bits and pieces, but you make a great point that they act that way towards their players, but they don't act that way. That's like a parent lashing out at their kids for doing something that they've always done or just being a kid, when really they need to look inward and figure out what their problem is.
Yeah, well, I think back to Nolan Arenado, right? Nolan Arenado made some comments about, the Rockies not being committed to winning, if I remember correctly, or something along that line. And, Dick Monfort threw a temper tantrum and, traded away Nolan Arenado. Obviously before that he had sent off DJ LeMahieu when they didn't agree on the terms of his contract. Right? They're willing to play hardball against the players. That same energy should be kept with the front office. That same energy should be kept when you say, "Hey, we're sitting here, as the laughing stock of Major League Baseball. We got to start playing hardball on everyone because the media, the national media specifically, not even just Rockies media, but the national media is playing hardball with the Rockies now, where they're saying this is a joke. What they're doing in Colorado is a joke, and you should be ashamed of yourself, And so it's like I just have a hard time sitting here, and I know Dick Monfort would love to win baseball games. Anyone who says, oh, Dick Monfort doesn't care about winning, all he cares about is selling tickets. No, he knows if he wins baseball games, he sells more tickets. He's just not willing to, at least on the outside, invest and take risks associated with winning baseball games. That's the part that gets me.
I know we got to hit a break here soon, but I want to get to Scott's point because we can't really say it, but I think we can dance around it enough to say that scenario was an actual possibility. We can't talk about specifics, but we've heard some things regarding that, and not necessarily that franchise, potentially another one, but I think we should talk about that a little bit.
Yes, there have been, let's just say, rumors that people within the Rockies organization have, and not Dick Monfort, but people close to Dick Monfort, have gone out there and pretty much told Dick, you need to go out to a team like the Brewers, like the Blue Jays, even like, from a draft and development standpoint, like the A's, like, just good teams. Yeah. Like just good teams. And you should just go, like literally just go with an open checkbook and say, come to Colorado. Right. And I mean, look, he's never going to do that, but I'm not against that. Right. Like, I mean, Dick Monfort has money, especially to pay for a GM, a president of baseball operations, like those kind of salaries. Maybe he's not paying $700 million for Shohei Ohtani, but he's got money to go pick up front office people. I am not against that. And his argument that, well, they don't know how to compete at elevation. They don't know how hard it is.
Apparently.
Like, neither do you, right? Show us that you know how to compete at elevation, and then we can have a different conversation. But until that happens, I don't see that being a thing. Lefty in the chat says, John Mozeliak, I think that's how you say his last name. I agree. I think there's a good chance that he might return as well. Got to hit our last break of the show. After the break, though, we got to talk about a tweet that was sent out by seemingly a current player on the Colorado Rockies that we have to talk about because if it's true, it's kind of wild. So we'll talk about that coming up after this last break. We'll want to give some love to our friends right now over at American Financing because we've talked a lot on the show about, this being a good time of year to buy homes. And that's the truth. You actually just purchased a home. Congratulations on getting a home. I know you're closing here soon. So it's that time of year. And I know it's for a lot of people. And American Financing is the place to go when you are trying to get into, just that whole process. And we've talked so much about how complicated it can be to get approved to buy a home, to go through to jump through all of the hoops associated with it. My wife and I bought a home, not too long ago, about 3 years ago, and it is such a headache. But when you are working with a company like American Financing, it takes care of all of that for you. They have incredible customer service so that they can work with you, especially for first-time home buyers like myself. When my wife and I bought a house, they do an incredible job of really taking some of that stress and explaining things in ways that you can process, in ways that you can understand. And, whether it's your first time buying a house or you're looking to upgrade, or maybe you're downsizing, you're trying to get pre-approved, American Financing can make that happen in 24 hours or less. They really do incredible work. So don't let the 20% down myth stop you. You could buy a home with as little as 3% down, and with down payment assistance programs available, getting into a home might be easier than you think. Call 303-695-7000. That's 303-695-7000 or AmericanFinancing.net, NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org. That is American Financing. Also want to give some love to our friends over at Bet365, because at Bet365, we do not do ordinary, and the Rockies are back in town. You're back in studio. I didn't want to make you do I don't want to make you go through bets when you were remote.
Oh.
But you're back on. So do you got any,
yes,
you got your anti-Rockies or maybe pro-Rockies parlay that you're doing with that Bet365 app? By the way, while he's pulling that up, use code DNVR365 when you sign up. If you are a new user of the Bet365 app, use that code DNVR365 DNVR 365. You can deposit $10 and get a whole lot of cool opportunities. So what's your bets looking like today?
Okay, so I'm rolling with this new thing where I'm just doing hit parlays, and I'm addicted to hit parlays. I'm not gonna lie. I like hit parlays, and I cannot lie. So tonight, I mean, every Rockies game, it's a complete hit fest. We know what this is, and the odds are crazy. But what we're getting here is we're getting a 50% profit boost from Bet365. So I'm going in here, and if it lets me log in finally, we're gonna go down here, and we're going to obviously Rockies, Diamondbacks at Rockies, and we're parlaying a bunch of guys. So it's Corbin Carroll, it's Lourdes Gurriel, it's Ketel Marte, it's Perdomo, and then we're going to throw some Rockies in there as well. We're going to throw Tyler Freeman in there, and then so those
hit machine.
Yes, and then let me see. I got to get some. They're not giving me because the lineups aren't out yet, so that's the only problem. But so we're parlaying one hit from Corbin, one hit from Lourdes Gurriel, one hit from Ketel Marte, one hit from Geraldo Perdomo.
You got it.
And then one hit from Tyler Freeman. That's plus 130. Then we boost it by 50, and we're getting 3-1 odds on those 4 Diamondbacks getting a hit and Tyler Freeman getting a hit, which he does almost every single game. And that, I mean, guys, it's Tanner Gordon. Tanner Gordon is pitching for the Rockies.
Hey, you never
tonight.
know. You never know. You get a couple good outings.
Tanner Gordon at
You never
Coors
know.
Field against the Diamondbacks. So parlay all of those guys together. I did want to throw Beck in there, and I usually throw like Beck, Moniak, but with it being early-ish on a Friday, lineups aren't quite out yet. We know Freeman's going to be penciled in there, getting 3 or 4 at-bats. I'm addicted to hit parlays. Hit one with the Bet365 app. I mean, 3-1 odds on that. We may see another 17 to 15 game tonight. I hope we do.
It might be electric.
And everybody's getting a hit if that's the case.
Like Oprah, you get a hit. You get a hit. We all get hits. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Did you see this on Twitter?
I did.
Okay.
Hank sent it to us this morning at
he did.
5:45.
He did.
I responded. I was awake.
Dion, you want to throw that tweet up there? This was a tweet that was sent out from the official account of Adael Amador. I think it was 2 days ago he said this. He said, if you're listening at home and you're not watching, he said that the tweet says, there are things I can't say out loud, and it is a Wheel of Fortune graphic that has sell the team pretty much written out in front of it on the Wheel of Fortune graphic, but the couple letters are blank. But you can fill in the blanks and read that it says sell the team. Now, I've been keeping tabs on this Adael Amador account for a while now because he says some pretty unhinged things. And I was like you, when we first came across this Adael Amador account, I'm like, there's no way this is him. It can't be, because not only does he talk smack about the Rockies sometimes, the other day he actually tweeted, and I think he deleted it. The account tweeted, I'll just say this, the account tweeted, man, you really lost to the Colorado Rockies, or something along those lines. Basically like shitting on us, his own team. And then I think it was brought down or taken down. But I went back a while ago, and he has deleted a bunch of old tweets. But there are like some wild tweets from a while back.
If he was getting drafted in the NFL, he would be dropping to like a third or fourth round pick because of all this. If somebody went through all this stuff.
So I went to, like about a couple weeks ago, I brought this up to some of the other Rockies media members who, again, are much more established than I am. And I'm like, this can't be real, right? Like, is this him? And so their take on it was, it is his official account. I guess there's something about like players registering like official social media accounts with the team. It is his official registered account. But there's an understanding, or there's an idea that he's not actually the one sending out these tweets. Now, if that's true, someone has to tell him, right? Like, there has to be someone. I know there's a language barrier. I know that, like, I
was going to say, if there wasn't a language barrier, do you think, because, I've been media a few times at the games, and there's those moments where, Warren Schaefer's on the interview, and then the cameras turn off, and then like Harding will grab him, or somebody else will be like, I need to or like Corrigan will be like, hey, we need to go talk in your office or something like that. Like, do you think that moment would have happened if he didn't speak Spanish?
But that's what I mean. So I'm like, are we assuming that this isn't him? If this is him, I mean, I see Burr says those are some big balls. Those are some huge balls. If that is in fact
Stan Marsh size.
Like if that is in fact Adael Amador sitting there behind a phone firing that off as a guy who is not even fully a big leaguer yet. I mean, this dude's on the verge. I mean, we just said I don't even see him being a picture like a guy that's a part of a playoff team down the road if the Rockies even got to that point. I am floored if that is him. Felix says someone go ask him. I might. Like I might like think of I might try to like do the like Google Translate thing, you know, like where I mean, I also, by the way, my college minor is in Spanish. So I can hold my own in Spanish. I feel like I need to ask him because on one hand, if he's like, I've never seen that in my life, you know, then that's a whole different story. But if he's like, if he laughs and he's like, oh yeah, that's funny, right? Like,
dude, that'd be electric.
That would be electric. Yeah, that's wild. I've seen some pretty crazy stuff on social media. I also did look at the account like this morning when Hank sent that. And the most recent thing that was posted, I'm seeing if I can pull it up here. The most recent thing that was posted, it looks like a personal picture or pictures of like him growing up, like playing baseball in, is he from the Dominican Republic? I don't remember exactly where he's from, but it looks, I mean, it's a legitimately old picture of him, you know, as a kid.
One of the Google searches of Adael Amador, you know how it fills it in? Wild. It's Adael Amador, sell the team.
Wild. I mean, it has 4,000 likes on it. It went viral. So I got to ask someone. I'm going to ask someone today. I don't know if it's going to be him. I don't know if I'll get access to him because sometimes players, they just aren't wandering around the same spot that we are.
All you do is just say, hey, like, can I talk to you for a sec? Just show him the tweet and see what his reaction is.
Is this you? Yeah. I mean, I also feel like, you know, language barrier or not, like he knows what, like, is this you?
If he started laughing and just walked away, that would be incredible.
I'll figure it out, guys. I'll figure it out. But I just had to bring that up because that was wild.
So
that was wild. Rockies have 7 games coming up here in this homestand. I think, right? 7 games, and then before they go back on the road. Because I think they play in Pittsburgh.
They have no days off for at least another probably 12 days, I want to say.
Something 11, like that. Days. The Rockies play the Diamondbacks and then the Dodgers. How many wins do the Rockies get in those next 7 games?
Well, they already lost 1 to the Diamondbacks, so they're 0-1. I'd say they go 1-5 these next 6. They'll get a win.
Okay.
If Kyle Freeland comes out like he did the other night, I mean,
maybe a Chase Dollander
after that.
Maybe a Chase Dollander win tomorrow. You think could be on the table?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Diamondbacks do strike out a fair amount, so you're hoping he can. You know, if we have to go the rest of the season and at least have a semi-stopper, if you will, in a Rockies form of either Freeland or Dollander, it will make the next 3 month and a half bearable.
Yeah.
Because right now, like the last 10 days before the Freeland electric start and then Dollander backing that up, we were in the depths of hell. We were in grave. Like,
are we not still in the depths of hell, Spencer?
Well, we got back there last night, yes, as we turned on the game and it was 5-0 in the second inning. But if we can get 2 starters to be at least go 5 or 6 innings and allow 4 or less runs, I feel like that'll give us a chance to win those 2 games out of every 5.
And a competent offense, which we've seen. And I know that might sound crazy, but we have seen a competent offense from this Rockies team, especially with some of these young guys. So I wouldn't say I'm optimistic, but I think one win out of these next 7 could be doable. I posted something on Twitter a couple days ago about being excited about the Seattle Mariners, being all in on the Seattle Mariners to win the World Series this year. So I wanted to change gears for a quick second. Obviously, we know the Rockies aren't going anywhere near a playoffs this year or next year or the year after that probably. So we as baseball fans, not just Rockies fans, but just fans of baseball, once October comes around, we have to kind of shift our rooting interests into a team that is not the Colorado Rockies. So I will go on record and say, and I already did go on record and say that the Mariners are my team that I'm going all in on. I want the city of Seattle, not just because my entire family is from Seattle and I grew up there, but I want the city of Seattle to get a World Series. And I think the Mariners have a roster that could possibly compete in a World Series, or at least through a playoff series. So the Mariners are my team that I'm going for in the World Series. who is yours going on record team that you are rooting to win the World Series this year?
Well, I don't want to just be like you. I mean, I do want to be like you, but the Mariners are the team that I first thought of when I saw that in the rundown. And I didn't see your tweet. Team. They're a likable team. They're a team that's had kind of 30 plus years of like, oh, we're always think we're going to be good enough in every spring training. They haven't rolled out a ton of like terrible teams, but they've had the Felix Hernandezes and the guys that you know and guys that you've seen. And now they bolstered their roster, you know, along with Cal Raleigh and getting Naylor and getting Suarez. So I'm a Mariners guy. If I have to go NL, which obviously I would never cheer for anyone in the NL West, I hate the Brewers because they thwarted the Rockies' last attempt at winning a wild card series, so I don't like them. Phillies are fine, but I would say my NL team is definitely the Cubs.
Yeah, Cubs would be fun.
I talk and deal with the Cubs. We have a Cubs event going on right now in Chicago. I think the Cubs, because the Cubs, especially too now, they were like 2 games ahead of the Brewers like weeks ago, and now they're 8 games behind them because the Brewers have won 10 in a row, and you're just
because the Brewers are the best team in the history of baseball.
They have Christian Yelich and a bunch of Bryce
Vaughn.
Terangs, and these Andrew Vaughn goes from the White Sox to them, and all of a sudden becomes a Hank Aaron. It's insane what these players are doing for these other smaller market teams. But the Cubs, and that's why Lux, like the Cubs are kind of free falling, but I also want them to like find it and. Baseball is a long season. We're going to see teams free fall, but it's the teams that are playing really good in September that will then carry that over. And we see that every single year. I mean, 2 years ago, we had a Rangers Diamondbacks World Series because both of those teams got insanely hot. So get your ticket in. The Cubs look like they will at least get a wild card spot. Get in the dance, and then it's the teams that get hot. You know, there's going to be the Dodgers and Yankees still there, and we did see that World Series last year, but most of the time there's going to be one of those teams that's just comes out of nowhere and gets a wild card spot and ends up winning.
The Mets were that team last year that was shocking. By the way, we are in overtime for those watching on television at home. Head to thednvr.com to continue the conversation. We are in overtime. The Yankees and the Mets are falling apart right now, but they were good enough in the beginning of the season that'll probably sustain them at least close to the playoffs, into the playoffs, I would say, probably for the Yankees. I'm kind of with Felix, though. I'm not rooting for the Padres because I agree. I mean, I hate the Padres. But if the Padres are going up against the Dodgers, or if the Padres have a chance to win the division against the Dodgers, I'm all in on the Padres. Now, at least from a National League perspective, right? Like, I'm not saying that I want the Padres to go win the World Series, but I would rather them go dethrone the Dodgers this year, just to continue to kind of piss on the grave of the Dodgers. Because I will say the Dodgers have not been a good team recently. They've sucked.
One of the teams that I also root for is whoever plays the Dodgers.
Literally.
That's just an easy route.
And it'll be one of those, I hope both teams lose, but I hope the Dodgers lose more. So the Padres are a good one. But the Mariners, I had said this on Twitter because I had a handful of people being like, oh no, like I can't root for the Mariners. Like I can't ever root for a team like that. They have the Seahawks, which did all those terrible things to the Broncos in Seattle and, all that kind of stuff. And look, I'm biased. I grew up in Seattle, went to a ton of Mariners games. I wasn't a huge Mariners fan. Like, I didn't grow up a diehard Mariners fan, but I went to Mariners games just because that was where I was living. The city of Seattle is very much like Denver from a baseball perspective. You have an ownership group that is kind of not really involved. They don't really want to invest, right? They're they'll put money in here and there, but they're not willing to go invest like crazy. You've got a front office that's been downright difficult for pretty much the entire time I've been there. The last time the Mariners were in the playoffs outside of these last couple of years where they like hit a wild card spot for like a second was 2001 when they were playing with, back when they had the All-Star game in Seattle. So I kind of sympathize as Rockies fans where I like see the Mariners. They're a very likable team. You've got Big Dumper. You've got great pitching. You've got Julio Rodriguez. Like, it's a fun team to watch. I hope the Mariners get officially into the playoffs, not just a wild card series. I want them to get into a playoff series this year for the first time, and I think the city of Seattle will go bonkers.
I'm with you. Yeah, I want to see a team like that succeed. I want to see a random team that doesn't necessarily have the biggest fan base. I wouldn't even mind like the Detroit Tigers. They're a fun story. They were
same.
So fucking bad.
Brewers are that way for me. I know the Rockies have bad history with the Brewers. But they've never won a World Series, so give them a World Series, Like, that's kind of how I feel. just anyone but the Dodgers. Anyone
or
but
the Yankees.
or the Yankees. Yeah. So I'm with you. Mariners for me. You said Cubs for you.
I'm gonna go I'm rooting Mariners with you, and then I'm Cubs NL. I'll take a team from each side.
As Scott always says, I'll have to bring my Mariners hat back out of the closet for some playoff series, hopefully in the next couple months. But got to wrap things up here on the show. Good show, guys. This was fun. We'll be up at the Rooftop Club today. So if you are heading out to the ballpark this afternoon,
come see us on the rooftop. We're gonna get $3 Coors Lights on the rooftop. We're gonna meet at the rooftop, not anywhere pre-game like we did last time.
No Toms this time, just rooftop.
Rooftop, come meet us. We'll have the green shirts on. We'll be drinking some Coors Lights. We'll get our spot and hopefully see a 9-run comeback again, because I was electric and I had to scooter all the way home.
You never know what you're going to get with the Colorado Rockies baseball. We'll see you in a couple hours, Mr. Purple. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next time. This has been the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Bet365.
We all silly like the mayor.